9:03, welcome back. Parents would be better able to help children in school if they had access to resources like study guides. This is one of the findings of a study by the Public Affairs Research Institute. Let's get more details from this, from the Institute's Dr. Thokozani, Chilenga-Butao. Doctor, good morning and thank you very much for your time. Just to clarify for our viewers, this survey we're talking about, this working paper you've produced, is really based on the experiences around education in two provinces, the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape. Let's start with the issue of parents, because there was a webinar, there was a discussion recently on this, and we know that among other role players, parents have a key function in the education of their children. What did you find?
Thank you very much for having me. Well, the first thing that we found is that parents need to receive information on time about school closures and reopening. And we saw last year with every closure and reopening that happened, parents were very uncertain and very anxious about the reopening of schools, given the nature of the pandemic and how it changed from day to day, from week to week. We do see that this morning schools have reopened, so I'm sure that parents will receive information more regularly and that they are happy to be sending their children back to school. On the other hand, parents need to be equipped with more information about how to support their children in learning while they are at home. We are still not out of the pandemic completely, and there might come another occasion where schools have to be reclosed. So some civil society organizations have actually embarked on creating booklets and manuals for parents to guide them in the learning process at home. As we know, not all children have access to online learning. Not all children are able to concentrate if their lessons are on TV or on the radio. And so a lot of civil society organizations, are trying to supplement parents' guidance through these booklets and manuals.
Okay, now that's the role of parents. I think the online one will be a challenge to a majority of parents who can't afford the data, who can't even have the appropriate devices, as you say, and the online learning, I guess, cannot be the only component of distance learning. Am I correct?
Yes, you're very correct. As you rightly point out, the majority of students don't have access to online learning. And this is why it is important to keep parents in the loop about closures and reopening, because they still rely on the school as that locus, as that point, that very central point where children will be able to learn.
Now, if they rely on the school, it takes me to my next question, the role of teachers. What came up here in your study about the role of teachers? This morning we're reporting with day one, some teachers are concerned, of course, amid the coronavirus pandemic. What about the role of teachers?
So we found that teachers and school principals have been integral to reopening schools on two levels. The first level is obviously through teaching, changing the curriculum, changing the school timetable, keeping students learning. The second level is that teachers have really managed a pandemic within the school and within the local community. This means that whenever schools close, it is teachers and principals who have to feed this information into the community, keep children motivated and learning, but also they are managing the pandemic in terms of social distancing, ensuring that there is enough PPE and sanitizers in schools. And also, while children are learning, ensuring that children or learners keep their masks on, keep their distance. It means that teachers are doing two things at once in order to make sure that learning continues.
Okay, finally and very briefly, Doctor, because of time, one other point that you've come up with, which when I read the story about the report rather, about this survey, is the issue of capacities. I mean, provincial education departments have resource challenges, among others, funding challenges. What did you find, very brief, and how important is it, especially in this academic year, for the capacity issues to be addressed by the Department of Basic Education?
So what we found is that regardless of the resources that a department has, they actually developed new capacities. Because they were focused on the sole goal of reopening schools, they were able to harness whatever capacities they had and whatever resources they had, be it small or great resources, to make sure that they focus on the reopening of schools. What this means is that in future, we really need to look at the multiple responsibilities that schools and provincial education departments have and see how we can alleviate some of these responsibilities so that the challenges don't just escalate and get greater, but rather providing teaching and learning becomes simpler for schools and provincial education departments.